So Matt, have you played Chinese Battlefield yet?
No, I wish.
Oh man,
because it actually looks good, but no.
Have you gotten into the details of Chinese Battlefield yet?
I think it has a name.
Should we
no.
call it? I mean, calling Chinese Battlefield Delta Force Hawk Ops is like, I mean, the name is the name in that they bought the rights, or the company has the rights to Delta Force. And that's about all it seems to take from Delta Force versus what it's taking from Battlefield. And I guess a few other adjacent shooters. You can notice some COD stuff in there as well. But I kind of did a deep dive.
Okay.
On this, I haven't been able to play it yet because they're rolling out the alpha in kind of a weird way where it's not making it to the Americas until like a day or something after this.
Yeah, they're doing like a
goes
European technical test right now.
Yeah, so we're stuck over here just watching everybody play it,
twiddling our thumbs.
That looks cool. I'd love to play that. I'll play it soon, I guess. The similarities between this game and Battlefield are insane.
Not just Battlefield, but 2042 Battlefield, which it sounds a little worrisome, but it's kind of working, at least from what I've seen. But continue.
Yeah. So if I saw Battlefield 2042 and I wanted to make that exact game, it would be a lot less effort than just making Battlefield 2042 from the start, because you have the ability to just see what they did and then just copy it all. And then as you go along in the process, you can go, you know what? This little thing didn't work out so well in 2042. Let's adjust it. Let's make it a little bit better.
Things. Yeah.
So if you were going to copy another product, you could potentially make a better product by iterating upon it with probably a lot less effort and a lot less frustration along the way. Which kind of seems, and again, I haven't played it yet, but looking at all the footage of everything is pretty much exactly what Delta Force Hawk Ops has done. Like if you compare the UI side by side,
the UI in particular, I was watching Two Angry Gamers and I looked at, they were on the spawn screen. And I was like, oh, they're playing Battlefield, and then they spawned into a map. I'm like, that's not a map I'm used to. And I looked at the title of the stream and it was like, oh, they're playing the new Delta Force game. It is eerily similar.
I mean, I wouldn't even call it eerie, Matt. I would say when they made the game, they had a screen of Battlefield up and they're like, okay, let me, that is like I didn't get too crazy in my deep dive, but I went into it and the UI is just ridiculous how much it's just copy and pasted over. To the point where I'm surprised nothing legal has happened yet. You might remember I brought up the story. It might have been last week that was on not Destiny, but the First Descendants copying Destiny 2's icon stuff. And that in itself is not a major thing because it's kind of it's a small little corner of the game that the icons look pretty much identical.
And it wasn't exact copies, but it was like heavily influenced. Yeah.
Very, very close. Well, the developers responded to it and basically were like, yeah, this isn't acceptable. We're going to change it. Right.
Yeah, well, good for them.
So they were like, hey, yeah, this is, they didn't admit to copying per se, because that's like a whole legal can of worms that I'm sure they can't do it. But yeah, they probably hired some guy. The guy just lifted all the artwork from Destiny, and they didn't know because they're just like, yeah, these icons look great.
And that does happen because when you hire some people, they can take shortcuts, and sometimes they're taking shortcuts on things that they don't realize is, a part of something else. So it does happen.
Yeah. So even that, between those developers, that was sort of like, hey, that's our bad. We're going to change it.
Yep.
Delta Force Hawk Ops is like everything in the game is like copy and paste. I don't know if you saw the little kill skull icons on screen. They're like exactly Battlefield 5. So if you go back from, it's 2042, and then there's some Battlefield 5 features in there as well. And then if you go back further, you can see other little things lifted. Also, their little hit marker sound effect is eerily similar to Call of Duty's. Like, it's just, it wouldn't fly over here. Like, I feel like a studio that did that here would get the pantsuit off of them. And I'm just wondering, I'm sort of waiting to see what happens if this is like too much of an issue, because isn't like one of the parent companies involved with like Tencent, or I don't know. Is Tencent involved in this game in some way? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked that deeply into it.
So yeah, it's just if you could call it plagiarism, if you could call it copying, whatever, I think it falls into that category. That said, the player base doesn't seem to care because everybody's just starved for a decent Battlefield experience.
Yeah, chomping at the bit for an actual new FPS game to play.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to try it out. You know, I'm like, yeah, this looks like straight up you just copied Battlefield's homework, but if they're not going to sue this company and this game's going to come out, then I'll check it out. You know,
what's fascinating is that they're doing 3 different things. They're doing a large-scale Battlefield mode, which is basically just Battlefield. Then they're doing an extraction shooter so that you can just play Tarkov, but in this world. And then they're doing like a gritty, hardcore, not hero FPS at all for the single player. That's Black Hawk Down, and it's just the fact that they're doing all 3 is already a lot, but so far it like each of them looks at least somewhat unique and distinct, not compared to other games because they're definitely borrowing, but from themselves, which is fascinating.
It's that weird, it's kind of like what was that Pokemon kind of knockoff game that came out? Palworld? Yeah, it's like Palworld is this weird amalgamation of just like a little bit of Pokemon, a little bit of this genre, a little bit of that genre. Let's just throw it together. This sort of feels like it's the same thing. Like somebody's figured out the formula where they're like, if we just copy a bunch of games, then nobody can say we copied one specific game. And we cater to everybody who likes those genres. So they're getting the Tarkov guys. They're getting the Battlefield guys. They're getting the... what was the other one? The something... Yeah. They're getting
it was a single player. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The people who want like a military single player thing. And I got to admit, the Black Hawk single player thing did look cool. I was like, oh, that's probably the most appealing part of that game to me, actually, because the rest of it does look like knockoff Battlefield. And I have a hard time believing it's going to improve upon the formula, but who knows, man.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I did like, because the little that I saw, some of the abilities that these characters have is actually kind of cool. Like there's one who just throws out a wall of smoke in front of him, and it's just a smoke screen. And it's like, oh, well, that is quite useful, and that's neat. And when you're watching it, it actually looks pretty smooth. Like the animations are well done. It looks like it's running at a decent frame rate. It looks nice. I actually would argue it looks better than Battlefield 2042 in a lot of respects, like the smaller details.
It's Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah.
For everyone who's been wanting Battlefield on the Unreal Engine, like this is basically it, right?
Yeah. The weapons look okay. It's really hard to tell how a weapon performs and how like the actual gameplay feels when you're just watching, right? You'll only be able to really understand that once you get your hands on the game. But it looked decent enough that it could be serviceable, and if they're able to make it enjoyable long term, like who cares if it's a little actually some people will care that it is derivative of other people's work, but I'm interested. I'm hopeful, but I'm not expecting it to be like the next big thing.
I'm sort of conflicted, right? The gamer in me is like, oh, I just want something that is a good Battlefield-like experience. The person in me who cares about infringing on other people's work is like, this is horseshit. Even though, sure, you can say EA dropped the ball, DICE has not been delivering, blah, blah, blah. They still own the rights to their franchise and their artwork and their work, even if you don't like it. So, yeah, that part of me is just like, of course they can make it cheaper and quicker and better, because that's what so many of these knockoff products do, is they just forego all of that R&D budget and time that it took to figure out how to make all these things in the first place, and they go, let's just copy it. And then a lot of people forget about that when they're saying, well, look, this is cheaper and better because clearly DICE doesn't know what they're doing or whatever. And it's like, they're developing it, they're inventing it. I
do agree with that. I want to make that point clear on my end. I do agree. It is pretty scummy for sure.
But outside of that realm, that's really DICE and EA's battle to have if they want to have that battle. So if they're not going to, then yeah, I'm going to pick up this game just like everybody else and give it a try. And hopefully it's good. Yeah. From what I've seen from the feedback, and I have combed through it, it's generally that it's a fairly competent game, but also it feels kind of like a wooden version of Battlefield. Things feel a little stiffer, less reactive. I don't think there's any destruction in the game, or like similar levels.
Necessarily need destruction, but
right. But like just movement mechanics, all that kind of stuff can feel, if you don't have it perfectly dialed in, things don't feel great. And so I think that's kind of what people were saying is like, it's competent. It just feels sort of like it's getting there type experience.
Yeah.
And it is an alpha. So, that is, it's not a beta,
and the stuff
alpha.
We've been seeing is just a small subset technical test.
Yeah. Right. I don't know what their plans are for vehicles and maps and all that kind of stuff down the road.
Well, they do have vehicles. They have as I said, when I was watching Two Angry Gamers play, straight up, there was a helicopter flying on over, there were tanks, and it was like, this is Battlefield. It's like, no, it's not. It's straight up a brand new game. It might look, it might sound, everything, but it's a different title.
Well, also, I mean, like, to give you an example of, again, the copying stuff, that helicopter UI is like copy and paste directly. Like everything is just, there's some of it is like, that's really close. And other things are like, that is straight up the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm really surprised that some of this stuff is getting through, because in most other genres and stuff, if you even come close to replicating something somebody else did, like you're in legal hot water. In gaming, I don't know what's going on. It's all over the map in terms of what is too similar, what's dissimilar. Because I mean, the FPS has been around forever, and everybody's sort of copying all of the inventions of the first-person shooter and iterating on them and whatever. But I think you kind of just have to pull ideas from everywhere as opposed to one area or two areas exclusively. Otherwise, then it looks like the other game too much.
And it really does look like the other game.
You could easily just watch footage of it and be like, oh, I haven't seen this map in Battlefield before.
If no one told you would think it was Battlefield. 100%. You'd think it's 2042.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty wild.
Got a visual update. Wow, all right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I will say this, and I kind of mentioned this in my deep dive video that I made, but watching a publisher that copies so heavily off of other games doesn't give me a lot of confidence in their ability to innovate or design, right? Because if you're not developing a mode from the ground up to be great, and you're kind of thinking about all the design challenges of it, then it doesn't really prove that you can design something cool or innovative, which they might not have to if they can just sort of replicate what's been done before, especially if they go back further and they're like, well, what made BF4 great? Let's replicate that, as opposed to some of the other games. But as many people pointed out on Reddit, they're like, they copied Battlefield. They just copied the wrong Battlefield. And that they mostly copied 2042 with the hero characters and stuff like that, which people weren't thrilled about, but it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't like copy. We don't even know if they technically copied everything too, by the way. Like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. There's some stuff in there that is not Battlefield, and some of their classes and stuff are not, but some of them also are. Like, just, oh, this is Falk from Battlefield 2042. Oh, this is that character. Like, it's the guy that puts up the shield turret that comes. I don't know. It just, the mechanics look exactly the same in some cases.
Yeah, but that's inherent to like basically every FPS. To play a little bit devil's advocate,
I see
first
what
of
you're
all,
saying.
we don't even the UI stuff, right? Like, yes, they could have drawn inspiration. Doesn't mean they're copying it. But also for the gameplay, like, there's only so many ways of actually having a character interact with the world. A healer is a healer, like a defense guy is a defense guy. And while I'm not saying that Battlefield 2042 characters are like Overwatch characters and stuff like that, you can find a lot of similarities between, this guy puts down a shield, just like this guy puts down a shield in this other video game. So I hear you.
Yeah, and as we've talked about in the past with that Marvel, whatever it was called, the Marvel clone of Overwatch,
Yeah.
That game was heavily lifting from Overwatch stylings and stuff.
Heavily inspired.
Yeah. So I wonder if just that's what is becoming the new norm in the game industry, where they're like, yeah, we can get away with heavily inspired visuals and user interfaces from another very popular title, and that's okay, I guess. Nobody's suing anybody, so we'll just leave it at that. Kind of weird, though. I don't like it personally. I want people to come up with their own ideas and visions, even if you want to steal the main idea of Battlefield. It's like, do your own spin on it, right? You know?
Battlefield has opened up the door for them.
Yeah, by failing so many times. And it is so funny to see the Tarkov like looting inventory and stuff also just thrown in there, because they're like, it's Battlefield, but the Tarkov version of Battlefield all of a sudden. And like, yeah, to me that is I'm kind of curious about that, right? I'm like, yeah, that would be cool to play a Tarkov Battlefield mix up. And these guys were just like, well, we'll just do it.
Yeah.
Just add it all together, see what happens, you know?
Well, with hero mechanics, you have like a class that has like a couple of unique, you're not Winston flying around the map.
Yeah, the hero term is not super appropriate for these types of games, but I get it. They're sort of more specialized. You have a character with a special
ability.
That's it. Yeah, and the ability isn't magic. It's like you get to deploy it's like Rainbow Six, basically.
Yeah, and Rainbow Six is technically a hero shooter.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully we'll be playing it shortly after this podcast goes live, and then we can see if it's good or not, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, even though it is heavily inspired by Battlefield. I'm still looking forward to trying it.
It does have the Battlefield vibes, man.
Yeah.
Whether those are stolen vibes or not, they are vibes.
Which, let's clarify, we don't know if they've been stolen.
We don't know. But it is, I mean, you gotta have the conversation, man. Like, there's no
They're
denying.
very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah. So, in terms of games that we have been playing, what have you been up to, man?
So I checked out the game Concord. Concord? That's what's right. Yeah, Concord. The new Marvel, it's not Marvel, but it is clearly Guardians of the Galaxy, but a hero FPS. So kind of transitioning over into another hero shooter. It is a video game that I think has like almost zero hype around it right now. It sounds like you don't even know what I'm talking about.
I'm like, why are you leading with Concord? I thought you were going to talk about a flight sim for that supersonic passenger jet. I was like, yes.
So
finally, Matt's getting into flight sims. Yeah, tell me about your HOTAS setup.
So you may have seen the trailer at the Game Awards or whatever, Summer Game Fest, where it was essentially like a Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy vibe to it, where you're watching this green guy and they're performing like I don't even know, I can't remember that's the actual trailer, but it looked like a single player Guardians of the Galaxy kind of knockoff, almost heavily inspired, speaking of inspiration. And it's supposed to be a story driven multiplayer experience. And it is okay. It's all right. I have mixed opinions. There's a lot of production value around the story elements. Like the cutscenes are actually really well done and the animations are fantastic. But I think the way that they're going to go about it is like each week you come back for like a new cutscene that tells a story of all these characters, which is kind of cool, having a narrative every week. But I don't know if the game itself is really going to keep people coming back. It's also $40, which is unique, I feel, right now for a lot of these kind of games, where it's like $40 is a decent amount, considering you can just go play all these other free-to-play games that are pretty popular. Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, cross the line. And God, how do you even start to describe Concord?
Is it so you know what's funny about this is I just Googled it and I have seen the artwork for it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it was what game it was for. I don't remember ever hearing the name Concord. Do you think we're not in the algorithm for this type of game, or did the marketing really just suck?
It had 1,000 concurrent players for the beta on Steam.
Oof.
So I don't know if it's just the algorithm or there's just like almost
failed
no hype.
The marketing on that one for sure, man.
Yeah. And as I said, the trailer for it was kind of cool. But it also is like Drax. There's a character who basically just talks like Drax. He's big, bulky. He doesn't look like him exactly, but he's a big guy. And he's like, oh, that's Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's all of these parallels between it. And once again, that initial trailer made you think that this was going to be some sort of highly narrative single player. And then it comes out, it's like, oh, it's another hero FPS.
Is the beta still happening right now?
I believe the beta, yeah. I played it only a couple of days ago.
The player base is completely fallen off too.
Yeah, I think it's down to like 100.
Yeah. So that seems like a pretty big marketing disaster on their front, because obviously, like, I'm looking at the production quality and it's like, yeah, this game wasn't cheap. Like, people spent money making it. And
the animations are fantastic. It's eerie that you like select this character called Itzy, ITZ. I think that's how you pronounce it. And she's like a green goblin looking creature with like fur but then she does like this animation and it looks like a person. You're like, what like you look so real. The way that the eyes move and everything, it looks so natural. I'm like, damn, like there is some production value here. And then you play, and she's one of the better characters too. She's a lot of fun to play. But then you actually play the game. And while each character feels really good, I would say that it's heavily inspired by Destiny. There's a lot of Destiny and Bungie ex-developers that were on this project. So it has like some actually good core game design, and like the feel of the weapons feels fantastic in a lot of ways. It's just all over the place in its like flow and the vibe. So it's going to have a lot of different modes depending on what kind of experience you're looking for. In the beta, there was TDM and Kill Confirmed, which is your like just casual mode. So you're in an arena, you have your team, the other team, and you just go around and you try to take out the other players, which is fine. And then there was a more CS:GO style mode where there is a objective that you need to capture in the middle and then take it to these different sites to plant the objective. But you only get one life on your team, and then it switches between rounds. But there's no like, if you're playing with randoms, there's no like teamwork. There's so little teamwork, and there's healers and there's tanks, but they're like off tanks and off healers from Overwatch. They're not like a Mercy where they sit there and heal. So you have like some cohesion and teamwork going on, but it's more of just everyone playing TDM and then a little bit of objective-based gameplay. So it just doesn't really have a flow to it. I mean,
looking at these Steam charts already, this game is DOA unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, it's not doing very well. Also, those Steam numbers you would get. So if you pre-ordered, which I did, you got access and you got 4 game keys you could give to friends. So those numbers may be boosted because
Oof. So it sounds like they knew. Here's my theory. They knew this game was not going to do well. Like whoever in marketing or in the business side was like, this game concept is too old. We've done the numbers. Nobody's interested in a game like this. We're not going to put any more marketing dollars into this. We will fund the game till the end and not do a normal game cancellation just so we can see what happens. Because normally a company would just cancel, and just pull funding.
Because it's not a dumpster fire. It's not like bad, but
they just like somebody made the decision not to put any more money into the marketing side of this.
Possible.
And then somebody was like, well, how can we get more exposure? What if we try and like do free keys or something if you pre-order it, and then all these other people can play. It sounds like they're struggling to try and get some interest in it, but.
And this is Sony, by the way. This is a Sony exclusive, but also on PC at the same time. It's got Sony's money behind it.
Yeah, I don't know who the game appeals to be honest. I mean, like,
I'm not sure either.
It's kind of got the Marvel vibe. Is it actually Marvel characters in it?
No.
Okay, so these are just made up fantasy.
Heavily inspired by, like, you watch one of the trailers, you're gonna be like, oh, this is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Heavily inspired.
Okay, inspired by that. So it's made up characters, kind of fantasy, not really a tactical shooter. It's more like fantasy shooter, fantasy sci-fi shooter or something, with a big emphasis, it seems like, on TDM with some light objective modes as well. I don't know who this game is for.
I would have loved to have played a cargo. What's a payload mission where you have to like push a payload or have an objective where there's an offense and a defense and you have to take it from them, because then I feel like there would have been a better understanding of kind of what the actual hero FPS and more of that experience was. But when it's just like a large map and reasonably large map, and then there's an objective in the middle, and some people will go for it and some people won't, and it just felt really messy. It really didn't feel like there was any cohesion, and there wasn't any reason to really lean into the hero FPS part.
I wonder if they sort of marketed this as like a competitor to Overwatch to get funding, and then maybe that funding sort of dried up along the way, and they're just like, let's just try and see what can we ship with the remaining funding. Okay.
And with game development taking so long, it could have been that this was in, when Overwatch was in its prime, and they were like, we want something like Overwatch. And then, as we know, things have kind of, not that Overwatch is awful and it's dying or anything. Like, there's still a lot of people playing Overwatch, but it's nowhere near the popularity it was 5 years ago.
God, I wish we could look at Blizzard player numbers for Blizzard games, man.
It would be interesting to know that stuff.
Yeah, because I bet you Overwatch is still very popular. I know a lot of people who play it. It's just kind of fallen out of the like popularity level on streaming stuff as much, and YouTube,
streaming and YouTube. Yeah,
which is interesting, because we do look at that as an indicator for what is and isn't popular,
and it's not always.
Yeah, it's not always, especially in like weird subgenres like RTS. People are like, oh, RTS is dead, and it's like, well, no, it's actually alive and well, and there's a whole lot of people playing them. We just don't really watch streamers play RTS as much anymore.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of, if a game, because a game can be really fun to play, but it may not necessarily be as enjoyable to watch. And a lot of streamers will go towards the numbers, right? Like if people just aren't enjoying watching it, that doesn't mean that the game is failing. It just means that people aren't watching the streams. And so those streamers move on to other games. And then the people that are actually enjoying the title because it's fun to play, they stick around, and you don't hear about it because, well, it's just not kind of in at least the mainstream Twitch, YouTube sphere.
Yeah. And that is, even like being totally ingrained in this world of streaming and being on top of stats, that is something that took longer for me to realize than I want to admit, to be honest, is just that I thought Twitch and YouTube, for the most part, were an indicator whether or not a game was still being played or is successful. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's tons of people playing all these cool little crazy indie games that nobody's streaming or making video content on, but they're still very, very alive and popping markets out there. But yeah, I don't think Concord's gonna be one of them.
Like, for instance, Baldur's Gate 3, no one's really talking about Baldur's Gate 3 anymore.
Yeah.
It had its game of the year, one of the best games. 75,000 people playing right now on Steam.
Yeah.
75,000 for a single player. A year, more than a year after its release.
Is it really over a year now? Holy smokes. Yeah. That's wild, man. I mean, that level of success is
obviously not the best example because it was game of the year and it's super popular, but just to kind of illustrate, just because it's not in the mainstream YouTube sphere doesn't mean it's like the player base is gone anywhere.
Yeah. That also does, I mean, and this is sort of tangential, but Baldur's Gate 3's replayability, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah,
I know, because most single players are like, you play it, maybe one more playthrough, you could try a couple different options here or there, and Baldur's Gate is just like, yeah, you're gonna have a completely different experience every time. Like,
well, better example, Elden Ring, 200,000, and I know the DLC just came out, but compared to launch week with streaming, everyone was streaming the game, and now there's still big streamers playing it, but it's nowhere near it was at a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah,
it's just I don't know what point I'm trying to make at this point, but yeah.
I'm I've been looking at, I want to get into Eve Vanguard. Did we talk about that at all before?
No, but you think you've mentioned it.
Yeah. I'm kind of I dove into it a little bit deeper, and
okay. I saw your video on it.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I used to play Eve online back in the day. Eve, I think I was playing in the beta in like maybe 99. I don't know. Long time ago. I played the beta on a Macintosh. Like I hadn't even gotten a PC yet. It was crazy. So this game's been around forever. And oh yeah, some interesting news about Eve is they're going to make their engine like open source pretty soon, to try and like instill that the game will live forever. Like they're more interested in the game being around forever. So while they're going to continue supporting it,
it will never die.
I know, it's such a crazy concept. There's nothing quite like Eve out there. Even though I don't want to go back to Eve because it is just a grind. It truly is the MMO. Like you need a second life to really get everything out of it. I still have that sort of appreciation for what it is. And they have tried to make an FPS component to the game forever ago. Not necessarily something that was like, oh, do I want to fly a spaceship or do I want to shoot? It was more of a standalone game that responded to the world of EVE Online. And that game was called Dust 514, and basically players in the EVE universe could affect the battles that would happen in Dust 514. And I believe there were orgs, and so certain orgs could have a lot more resources, and they would just trounce the other orgs. And so the politics and the money of the EVE world could affect Dust 514, and it was really cool, but also led to a lot of problems and stuff like that. It was sort of the planet side syndrome where the battles weren't very fun if one side just had double the amount of players and vehicles. You're like, oh, we're going to lose. Okay. Like, get ready to lose for the next hour. And so a little bit of that trickled over into Dust 514, but it's clear that CCP, the developers of EVE, are really interested in pursuing the FPS genre. Again, Dust 514 was console exclusive, which was also a very weird choice even back then. So they're making EVE Vanguard now. It's being built in the Unreal Engine. It's taking kind of an interesting extraction shooter approach to it. And it seems like they're taking it real slow, where they're just trying to get each element dialed in and right, and then they're going to expand upon it. So the very first iteration of the game seems like it's very much just an extraction shooter with mostly the extraction shooter mechanics in there within the EVE universe. You're on planets within EVE. And then they think eventually they'll want to integrate some contract stuff where players from EVE are able to put in contracts for things that they want to happen on a planet. And then the players in EVE Vanguard will go in and extract stuff. And I do like the idea of these hybrid games and shared universe experiences. And there's almost no franchises out there that can really do this sort of thing. So it'd be cool if they can achieve that with EVE Vanguard. The graphics for it look pretty nice, and I think there's going to be some new play tests coming up. I'll see if I can get into one of them, but it's a weird little...
And you haven't played it yourself though, right?
No, you have to be sort of part of an EVE... I don't know if it's a subscription thing to get access to it, but I got to figure out how to get into one of the play sessions.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to market it too heavily right now. I think they're trying to work out the bugs and kinks before they push it too hard.
Yeah, it looked all right from what I saw, but I'm not really in tune with that universe, so it doesn't really have any... I don't really have any attachment to it right now.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And EVE is very sci-fi-y, but one of the things I do like about the universe is they give you a really good in-game mechanic for why you can die and respawn, and that's because
you're a clone.
Yeah, everybody in it is a clone, and so that mechanic is being carried over to Vanguard as well. And I like that. That's fun, and because it takes place so far in the future, where you're like, oh yeah, clone tech is great. You know, you can just die and just pop up in a clone over here, you know, and you're like, okay, that is pretty cool. Man,
that is some existential dread right there, because you died. It just transferred the data. You dead, boy. You kind of live on, but you dead.
Yeah. What's that Nolan movie that's like about that? The Magic movie. You remember that one with Hugh Jackman?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
That one was fun. That movie probably explored that concept of sort of being cloned, I guess. And
what makes you?
Yeah, and I remember that being sort of a existential element of Star Trek as well, where they revisit the concept of the transporters in Star Trek, where they beam them.
They beam you up, and did they actually explore that?
Yeah. Some of the characters in the universe believe that you die and then are just rebuilt at the other end. So they're like, you're just dead now, and I don't want to use the transporter. I think that was kind of. I think that was some of the Doc's original logic. McCoy. I think he used to be like afraid of transporters or not like them or something. But yeah. Anyway,
Soma's a game that explores that too.
Yeah.
The horror title. It's a good game if you want a little bit of existential dread.
Yeah, I like that one in particular. It is a really fun and freaky concept, and then the whole cloning thing, and there's that movie with Sam Rockwell, I think is his name. It's called Moon, and I
never saw that.
He's like a repair guy on the moon, like repairing moon bases, and he keeps getting these. He's got so many days he'll be there before he gets to go back home and like be with his family or something like that. And he's got like little messages in his inbox and stuff. And then he like finds a dead copy of himself in one of the bases and realizes he's like a clone. And it's this whole like crazy thing. And they're just like, oh yeah, we're just cloning repair guys on the moon and telling
Severance
them
that Severance is also fantastic twist on that entire genre too.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Severance?
Yeah, dude, the second season is coming soon.
Yeah, I love, because I don't think this is a spoiler for the show. I guess it kind of is, but the idea of splitting your brain in between work and home, but it's like literally split, and then it becomes like a different person at work and a different person at home is such a cool idea. You've literally got two people in your head. It's incredible. I love it. Such a great concept.
That concept is also explored in some episodes of Dark Mirror, in the idea that people would willingly enslave themselves if they don't have to remember the component of being enslaved, right? So
for work, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's such a wild idea. Where there's an episode of Dark Mirror where basically this very wealthy, I think it's a wealthy woman, makes a copy of her mind to operate her smart home, because only she will know how she likes everything done, what temperature to run her bath at, and what time to get the toast ready in the morning and all that.
And so now there's just a copy of her managing the home all day, every day for eternity. Oh my God. And it's her too.
Yeah. It's a complete clone of her mind. And so it tells the story from the clone's perspective.
Right.
And it basically the home has to torture her into being subservient by just like putting her in solitary confinement for like 10 years those 10 years take this span of like 10 seconds in real life, right? So they just,
oh my gosh,
they just enslave themselves. And that concept is so disturbing and so amazing at the same time, because I mean, if somebody was like, hey Matt, like, do you want the best smart computer ever that can do everything that you need it to do all the time? All you need to do is just kind of make a little copy of your brain, and we'll put it in the computer, and it'll run everything for you.
Sign me up, baby. Put me in. It's not me. It's kind of me, but it ain't me.
Yeah. It's a freaky concept, man.
Yeah, because oh my God, it's and that's where the existential stuff comes from, right? Like, it is fascinating. I love it. It's terrifying though.
Yeah.
Could you put a part of yourself through that? Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's like people can do a lot as long as we're removed enough, right? It's like people aren't killing the animals to eat the food that they eat, and I think if a lot of people had to, they might choose not to, right?
Yeah.
But if you remove yourself from that process, then you're like, burger.
It's easier. Yeah. Oh, chicken. I love chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Yeah, but you didn't have to chop the chicken's head off, right?
I do love chicken nuggets, Level Cap.
They're very good. I like chicken as well.
They're very good. But you're right. Little chicken had to die for it.
Yeah. Every time you wanted chicken nuggets, if you had to cut off a chicken's head, you might not have chicken nuggets as much.
You might think twice. Yep.
Yeah. Fun concepts, man. What else? What else you been playing, man? Aside from your flight sim, Concord.
So I want to give a little bit of closing thought on Concord.
Yeah.
I do think it has promise, but I just don't know if it's coming out in 5 weeks. And
I can tell you right now, it's not going to make it, Matt.
That's what I'm worried about. Cause it like the core gameplay is pretty fun. Like there's one character, I think it's kind of the main one, the big green guy. I think it's like Tenox or something.
Yeah.
He feels great. Like he's basically like the hunter using a deagle or whatever from Destiny, and he feels great. I love playing as him. And there's other characters that feel similarly unique and fun, but then you're like, the gameplay and the actual like game modes and the flow of it just feels so all over the place, and I'm just concerned that it's just not ready. So
yeah,
I hope for the best. I always want new games and new FPS games to be fun, because I feel like we're always looking for more. But I have my concerns. All right, so the next game I'm playing, another is Once Human. I've been playing a lot of like inspired games apparently lately. Once Human is borrowing from a lot of other titles, but doing it in a pretty fun way. Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't.
So it is it's an open world survival, and it has all the survival mechanics that you would kind of come to expect. You got to eat and drink, and you've got to craft a base, and there's some base defense that you can do as well. But you are going through this world, taking out challenges around the map, just like places of interest, and finding loot boxes, and then using the loot that you get from those boxes to go back to your base, craft some new items so that you can go and take out a challenging boss, right?
Like and it's a giant tentacle monster from the sky.
Yes.
Or something.
And the thematics of some of it is really cool. And it reminds me of like the Souls franchise, where it's really dark but was like some SCP. I think SCP is the right word. The like supernatural kind of entities, anomalies, and stuff like that.
Okay.
That is the vibe. And when it leans into that, it's really fun. But also, you pick up pals like Pal World and Pokemon. I'm not even kidding you.
I swear to God, Matt.
Not even joking.
So you can get without Pokemon for like just give me a year with no more Pokemon games.
And I guaranteed what happened is they had these anomalies in the game, these deviants, I think is what they're called. And I think they adjusted it when Pal World was their success.
Yeah.
So now you get a pal or a deviant called Digsby. Their job is to dig around your biome and bring back resources. There's another who's literally a beaver. He looks super cute, and he chops down wood for you. So you can go back to your base and be like, oh, I wonder, while you've been going out doing your stuff, you come back and they're like, hey, I got some iron for you. Put that in the smelter and you can now make some things with it. It is... I actually don't all of
mind
these systems,
those mechanics, if I'm being honest.
I don't either.
Like the idea of you being able to automate a base. Like,
yes,
obviously people love games like Factorio, where that's the whole point of the game is just automation at a mass level. Yeah. So integrating that more, I think, totally makes sense in these types of games. Yeah.
I completely agree. With Pal World, I loved what they did with the pals when it came to your base construction. It added another layer. Granted, it felt a little bit not tacked on. It felt a little bit even in its infancy, because it is an early access game, and I'm sure they're going to be iterating on it. And I think it's cool to have another game try to do something that is similar, where you can have a little bit of automation, where you don't have to always just be farming and doing all of that on your own, because that can get really tedious, and it can blossom more and more. They add in more and more systems, and then you're just like, all I'm doing is managing my base. I want to go out and actually experience the world. So I think that's really cool, and it works for the most part. What's fun is that it's just a survival title. At the end of the day, it's not a looter shooter, but it kind of has a lot of the same elements, where you're just going around exploring, getting better loot, going and tackling harder challenges, harder bosses, and building up your base in the meantime. And while it may not be doing anything crazy new, it's just kind of a fun world to exist in and go through sort of that trend. I've been playing with Tomographic, and we've been having a great time over the last week. It's been good.
It's interesting because it makes me wonder if maybe that's just the cycle for these types of games, where this team can work on a game for 3-4 years, however long it takes to make your kind of survival shooter type experience. It's fun. People get into it for a while, and then it just kind of slowly fades out. And then the next survival shooter comes out, co-op survival shooter type thing. There's like The Forest, then there's like other stuff. It's all kind of like variations of that type formula. And people seem to like them enough to the point where it's like, yeah, this was fun. I don't want to play it anymore because I've explored everything you can do in it, but I'd be down to play a completely different one, you know?
Right. And that's what's so weird about survival titles, is that they're all so similar. It's a really good point. It's like, oh yeah, I want a new survival game because there's just something about that gameplay loop. It's about chopping down trees and building a house just feels
well, also
right.
exploring a new world and learning the mechanics, you know, and you're like, oh, hey, because I mean, Minecraft was really cool when you were discovering that you could craft these new elements, right? You're like, oh, if I combine these together. But, you know, 20 years later or however many years later, it's not quite as exciting anymore because you already know everything. So if you make a new world and then you can learn all the little ins and outs of that world and explore it, I get it. And honestly, I don't hate the life cycle if that is the life cycle of what survival shooters are, which is like, these are really fun when they're around, and then as they fade, if you want another one, just go get another one.
Yeah. First of all, your mic was popping a little bit. Still popping.
Popping?
Maybe not anymore. And it just popped when whatever you just touched.
Oh, I bumped the thing. Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. Just wanted you to know. What I think is interesting, and I think they're trying to maybe remedy this, is people playing and then they're just piecing out. They're doing, it's a little controversial, is it's on a 6-week season cycle where for the first, so the 6 weeks that we're playing, you'll be able to build a base and do all the challenges and hopefully take out all the bosses and experience all that. And then it's going to go back and reset pretty much everything. And I think it will go to a different biome on this giant map. And then you're going to be able to do quests and experience new bosses in another part of the world the next 6 weeks. So it's going to
they're gating your gameplay to a degree, but they're forcing you to pace yourself essentially. And that is an interesting experiment. I'd be very curious to see if it works out.
Yep.
Did you see recently, and this is an interesting kind of adjacent topic, but what was that? Manor Lords. Okay, so Manor Lords came out, and that was huge, right? Everybody was like super hyped about that. And then
great game.
Kind of, and now it's kind of dying off, right? As people have done everything that you could do in it and kind of experienced it, and now they're kind of relaxing. I think it's still early access. So
absolutely.
Some people, you know, as the press does, they'll make articles about, oh, this game's dying and nobody's going to be around to play it when 1.0 eventually launches. But Hooded Horse, the publishers of Manor Lord, who I've been gaining a lot of respect for, I see them pop up in the news and they're always just saying level-headed, smart things, you know? And they're just like, it's okay if people want to drop off. Like the model for games doesn't have to be always keep your audience engaged all the time. We're okay
24/7
with people coming back to it when it's 1.0. Like, it's fine. Like, oh, we'll be fine. Stop stressing out our developers with your silly articles. Like, we're excited about getting 1.0 out whenever it comes out, you know? And you're like, yeah, why can't more publishers just accept that as the life cycle? And why can't journalists chill out about, I mean, like, come up with a new headline. I realize that
I'm kind of part of the problem because I'm insatiable and I want more. But I also do respect that it's like they're a smaller dev team. They're not going to be able to pump games or like content out.
It's like one dude. So I think that's part of what the articles were like. This is what happens when you have one developer making a game. It comes out in early access, and then we're not going to see more content for months and months and months and months. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But man, it came out. It's damn good early access title.
Yeah, I mean that dude is. I mean he's fine, regardless of what articles are written about him. Like,
and even if it didn't get any more after that, it's like a really competent game. Like, there's clearly more that needs to be done. Like, it's a little shallow in some respects, but I've had my fun. I got my money's worth. Like, I'm a happy guy. Yeah. But you're not wrong. We do have this mentality these days, and I think we've been conditioned by these bigger publishers to expect constant updates on a regular basis. And if it doesn't, and if the numbers do drop, that means it's a failure, but it's not a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at it from his angle in terms of like the development angle too, which is like, once you hit 1.0, you're going to have built out all the features that you want in a specific way. And then if you're interested in making a sequel, you've got a lot of that groundwork done for you. You know, you've figured out a lot of that hard stuff, and now you can just build on top of that. And I feel like a lot of those indie projects like that, the first one was really just figuring out how to make the game. And then the second one is like, okay, well, let's have fun with it now. Now we can really like get into what makes it great and spend time with that, as opposed to just spending all of our time just trying to make it, you know, outright.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I look at the development cycle in that way too, from the dev's perspective, right? Like there's still a lot of value in them hitting those 1.0 feature marks and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So with regard to Once Human, I actually do kind of recommend it if you're looking for a survival title, especially if you're wanting to play with friends. It's just fun to roam around the world. It's really easy though. So if you're looking for a challenge, you're not really going to find it. Some of the bosses are kind of hard if you're coming unprepared, which is nice. I wish it was harder, because then it would give you a better incentive to actually make sure your build is right. And that's what's cool too, is you have kind of builds where there's different item sets and you can kind of build your character. Like, I want to be a status effect guy. I want to be more of like headshot crit damage. And so that's neat. And to see that in a survival title is fun. And the base building is kind of cool, except if you want to build a roof level, Cap.
No roofs in this game?
If you want to build a roof, screw you. It has one of the worst. I'm still tilted. I tried to make a
roof.
The
roofs really got you angry.
It is horrendous, level Cap. If you build like a more like modern roof that doesn't have like, you know, a point or anything like that, it's like flat box with like, it's fine, right? It's fine. And usually you want to do that too, because you need to put stuff on your roof. In terms of like solar panels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you try to make a traditional roof and there's the options to do that, it clips through walls. It won't land the way it should. It doesn't snap on properly. I swear to God, I spent an hour trying to get this roof going. My Lord, level Cap.
This is where you draw the line, Matt. I wanted to see this in your Steam review. It does have mixed reviews on Steam, and it's probably because of the roof system, you know?
No, actually it was the TOS. Did you hear about the TOS and how everyone freaked out about it?
No.
So the TOS was basically like, pretty much implied that you need to give like government ID information, social like media information, date of birth. No, like legitimately, yeah. And so all these people latched onto that, and as the internet does, like Twitter, someone comes in, gets freaked out, and you know, validly so. You should look at this stuff and try to look at it from like, hey, I want to protect my information. I don't want to just give this out willy-nilly.
Some sort of crazy TOS into there.
So give me a second.
Yeah.
The reason why all of this information was required is because if you live in certain regions of the world, you have to give your government ID. I believe in China, that is a requirement for play like online video games. So if you're in the United States, it does not apply to you. They're not going to go to the government and be like, hey, that guy's playing our video game, give us all of his information. If the social media stuff, if you had like a survey and you filled out in the survey voluntarily, like, hey, this is my Twitter account, or you linked your Twitter account, like all these other games, they now obviously have your information on what your Twitter account is because you gave them your information. They're not doing anything nefarious.
So it was sort of a misled article about...
Basically, people freaked out and it took off, which made people scared. And so they gave it a mixed review because they're like, whoa, I don't want this. This seems invasive. But in reality, it was all like standard things that you see in every other video game, except that it also applies to certain regions of the world where they do have to disclose more information. So it was just basically a big old nothing burger.
Yeah, it does suck that people have to feel on edge about this stuff because...
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of Chinese games are getting super invasive with the data collection and stuff, and now...
Oh, but it was getting wild. Like, some people were coming to my channel like, you realize that you're playing a cryptocurrency scam game. Like, where did this come from? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, it sucks, actually, how those stories get out of whack. There was, I'm not going to name the sponsorship, but there was a sponsor that I've had for a long time on the channel, reoccurring, that I actually like and truly believe in the product, like have used it. And there was a story about the company, and it wasn't even like the company, it was like the company that owned the company or some crap like that. Having some like, I don't know, like getting in trouble with fudging some tax numbers or something like that. I don't even remember specifically, but basically they just decided that it tainted the whole company because some executive somewhere like messed it up. And then like, I didn't hear the story and I made an ad on it, and like, it was like just a little in-roll ad. And then the comment section was like, how could you support this business? And I read up on it and I was like, actually don't know if I am like fully on board with the trashing this actually legitimate company because like one executive, I don't know. But those stories get crazy, right? Like one story comes out.
They kind of go on a life of their own.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, the first telling of those stories often becomes the way a huge portion of the public sees it. And the first telling of them is usually the one with the least amount of information or the most sensational or whatever. And so you get a bunch of like kind of half-truth stories out there dictating the narratives.
And I'm assuming what happened is there are people that made these big claims that it was invasive and they're requiring all this information. And then people went to the actual TOS and read like, oh, government ID, but they didn't actually like read all the way through it. There's like, oh yeah, it's right there. Like, obviously. But then when you actually like sit down and read it, it's, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm not a lawyer, and that legal jargon can go over my head a little bit, but I've seen other people like who actually are more equipped with this knowledge be like, no, this is your standard stuff for like every video game that you've ever played. This is very, very normal. It just, like we said, took on a life of its own.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that it hit the Steam reviews, and I'm glad you're setting it straight here so that if people are listening or watching, that they'll know that the mixed reviews isn't necessarily coming from the gameplay, unless it's the roof system, in which case
the roof system is really bad. But besides that, it's really fun. Well, at least I enjoy it. But I'm also a huge survival nerd, so
yeah. Well, that's good, man. Did you see that they got? I mean, this has sort of become a game meme at this point. Is getting Doom to run on different devices.
What is it on now? A toothbrush? I think they already did that.
Yeah, they did the toothbrush. It's on like some guy's smart lawnmower or something like that. No, they. I mean, this is less surprising, but they modded Doom into Unreal Fortnite, and it looks really funny because you're like playing the classic like OG Doom with all the voxel stuff going on, or I don't even know if it was voxels. It was something, and then you can build Fortnite platforms while you're running through it. It's like really funny. So they like just left in some of the basic Fortnite mechanics, and so you're just like hammering little ramps up to get to places, and then like you're playing the normal Doom game though. I thought Fortnite. It was on Unreal Fortnite. I thought it was impressive because, man, am I the only one that sees that Unreal Fortnite is about to become the biggest thing ever? Like, it feels like Roblox's days are numbered. Like, it just seems like a definite thing that's gonna eventually transition as people coming into Unreal Fortnite, and that'll become the new major modding platform.
It might be. I'm not in tune with it, but I'm also not a dev like you, where you're kind of getting into the weeds with it. For sure. I don't know. It's possible.
It could be that thing too, where because I'm in the weeds, it's like the VHX versus Betamax. If I'm aging myself there,
a little bit.
Like two technologies come out, and one that you could argue is the better technology loses because I don't know, the other one was marketed better. It came out earlier. Its price was a little bit better, and so it doesn't always go in the direction of tech. So it's very possible I'm off the mark with this Unreal Fortnite experience versus Roblox, but I get excited about it because I know the market size of Roblox. It's astronomical. Insane. It is huge. As an adult gamer, you're not as in tune with it because you're playing not Roblox. But
right, it's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
There's so many kids playing Roblox. Like X Factor, a friend of ours, he's like, yeah, my kids just play Roblox. I'm like, oh, okay. That's just what they want to play. At least I think it was him that said that. It is incredibly popular.
Yeah. Well, I think, every time I see new stuff happening in Unreal Engine Fortnite stuff, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They got just straight up Doom working in Unreal Fortnite stuff. The stuff you can do in it is so much more impressive than Roblox, but maybe at the end of the day, that doesn't matter all that much. If people just want to run around and do silly stuff in Roblox, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you ever hear about the game Cataclysmo? Probably not.
I've heard the name.
Have you heard of They Are Billions?
Yes.
So it's sort of like They Are Billions.
Ooh, exciting.
A little bit.
Oh,
but it's smaller scale.
The trailer is already like, I've watched it before. Oh,
yeah. I got early access to it, and I don't want to do like a review because I don't know if I can give a review of it necessarily, but I did a live stream, and it's kind of just a little fun little game, like not tower defense, but like a base defense title where you have to like gather resources and go around the map just like you do in They Are Billions, and then each night a bunch of crazy humanoid like demonic beings try to destroy your base, but you, being the smart guy that you are, have to build defenses almost like Minecraft, where you control every single little box that you can place down, and you can build like massive towers that are beautiful, or it's literally just a wall, right? Like you can just make a wall, and it may not be pretty, but it gets the job done. It was a fun little experience, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
I think either you talked about this last podcast or you talked about it after the podcast, but I remember looking at this trailer and saying, this looks just like Age of Darkness. And then I looked up Age of Darkness and I'm like, it's... I'd be curious to see how much this is different from Age of Darkness, because it's the same exact concept where you're building castle walls and little defense towers and stuff, and then every night or cycle or whatever it is, the demon things come out of their areas and attack you, and you have to try and survive. And then in between, you go out, collect resources, build up your base. So it's funny.
And I think, and that game is inspired also, I think, by They Are Billions. So they all share a lot of similarities. Yeah. This one feels more focused, and it's not as large in scale, where you have like a gigantic map with billions of zombies trying to take you down. It is smaller in scale, but I do think it's really fun, because the higher you build your wall, the more reinforced it gets. So it gets more HP. And so you are incentivized to build like really tall buildings, but then each character has a preferred distance they want to be, or height they want to be able to like hit the enemy from. So some of them want to be within like 4 meters to the ground. Some want to be like 15 meters up. And so you have to situate them and make like windows and different ambush spots for them in your base defense, which is cool. I like the idea of having to construct it in unique ways based off of the units that you have.
I like that a lot too. One of my favorite things in building games is when it becomes like a pattern in how you situate things around each other to get the maximum efficiency, and that becomes like a really fun little mini game within the game. And so I never thought about integrating it to, I mean, it is already kind of dynamically integrated to a lot of these tower defense type games, but adding that extra layer of complexity to it, I could see would be fun. Because comparing it to Age of Darkness, there was a certain point where the game felt like, okay, I can't go any deeper than this, so I just kind of have to just build more, right? It wasn't like build differently or innovate my strategy. I was just like, I just keep building as many of these things as you possibly can, and that became the strategy. And after a while, that becomes less fun than figuring out intelligent, efficient ways to do things.
When it does go live, and I think it's going to be in a couple of days, maybe even when this podcast goes up, for early access. It is early access style, so it's not done. Yeah. And there are parts where I'm like, I wish that this would be done a little bit better. I wish there was like a blueprint where you could just build like a spiral staircase to reach like really high up, because having to like manually place every single one of the staircases gets old very fast, right? Yeah. So there are things that they can improve, but they've got a really fun foundation. And if you like base defense similar to those other titles, but while also kind of a little bit of Minecraft base building, it's a cool little game. I was really happy with it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm down. I could easily see myself losing some serious hours to this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. You watch? I watched 2 decent movies since we last spoke.
Nice.
I've been talking about The Bear a bit on the podcast because it's such a good show. I do love it. And mostly for the actors. The actors are just incredible. So I was looking up Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, who's the main character in The Bear, because I wanted to see what else he's done, because he's just a really good actor. And I came across this movie called The Iron Claw, which I had heard about before, but I just never watched because I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. It's a movie about professional wrestling in the televised version, like the pre-WWF professional wrestling in the 1970s. And it is an incredible movie. And Zac Efron is the lead.
I was going to say, Zac Efron's on it.
And Zac can act, apparently. Oh. This was not a typical Zac role. I mean, he's playing a buff, good-looking dude, which is him, but also it required a lot of really deep emotional acting and
nice,
very impressive. I
always forget he looks so different these days. I'm like, oh, that's Zac Efron. He just looks so different. I think he
actually had a car crash and needed face reconstructive surgery, so he does actually look a little bit different.
Yeah, he doesn't look a little bit different. He looks very different.
Yeah. Which obviously sucks.
Yeah,
but so this movie is based on a real family that I'm not that into the professional wrestling world. I'm sort of topically aware of different characters within it, but I think the movie's pretty accurate to real life events, and it is a wild journey.
I'll have to watch it. I saw it on a streaming service, and I was like,
I highly recommend it.
You highly recommend it? Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I can't say too much about it without, I think, giving away some of the big emotional cues in it. And I would say if you don't know the story, because it is a true story that I
literally know nothing about it.
Yeah. So if you're not into professional wrestling, then you probably won't know what happens. And I think that'll make it a more enjoyable watch to a degree. Not that it wouldn't be good either way, but that one was incredibly good. I then watched a movie called Bike Riders. Have you heard of that one?
Just came out, didn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I saw all the trailers for it.
Yeah, it's got some big actors in it. It's got Austin Butler, who's the guy.
He's everywhere now.
Everywhere. It's got Jodie Comer, who's from Killing Eve. She's really good. Norman Reedus is in it. He just shows up randomly. Yeah, because he looks like a bike rider. And you're like, yeah, I see that. He should be in this movie. A lot of big actors in it, and I think it covers the true story of the Vandals, which are the second biggest biking club in the U.S., which I think Hell's Angels being the first.
Did you just leave out Tom Hardy just because?
Oh yeah, Tom Hardy's in it. I know.
He's like,
yeah, Tom Hardy's one of the main characters. It was weird. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest, because have you ever seen the show Sons of Anarchy?
No.
Okay. That show was fun in that it's sort of loosely based on the Hells Angels story, but they kind of romanticize the world of bike riding. They write these characters that are kind of.
I have to point this out.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear someone say bike riding, I'm thinking little actual bike, bicycles. Yeah. And so when I hear this this hardcore movie about bikers, I'm thinking
they're on
people
their Huffies.
on bicycles. Yeah. Continue.
No, motorcycle clubs. So I watched the show Sons of Anarchy, which kind of romanticizes the world of bike riding and kind of gives you these more emotionally intelligent characters that aren't just these sort of meatheads. Just, they have some depth, dimensionality to them. And then, of course, they get pulled into the world of crime, and it allows you to relate to the character more and then sort of relate to them as they go down these darker paths. And it was well done in Sons of Anarchy. Bike Riders, which is very much based on the true story of the Vandals, doesn't seem to try and romanticize it, which I think is accurate to a degree. You know, they're not like trying to make the characters more intelligent or more than what they were.
Depending on what they're doing, you probably shouldn't romanticize it.
Yeah, for sure. And so it was well acted and well done and historically interesting because it is, I think it follows the historical events of it pretty accurately, and it shows what the biking clubs and the biking clubs were before they got more associated with gang violence and gang activities, because there was a transition point. So the movie does a good job of showing the before and after and how that kind of came to be. But also the before just didn't seem that cool. So I was watching it and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I feel like this should have been like a more of an emotional transition for me going, that was great how it started. Oh, that's sad how it ended. And it was more just like, yeah, nothing about this appeals to me in terms of like the lifestyle or anything at the start. And especially not at the end when things go into the gang side of stuff.
Go haywire.
Yeah. Interesting from a historical standpoint, but from a movie standpoint, I was like, yeah, I would have fudged it a little bit more and maybe made the characters a little more, I don't know, deep or something early on. But
okay,
it was interesting if you're into the want to know more about bike gangs.
Fair enough.
And their history. Yeah.
I was a weeb and I watched an anime called Kaiju Number 8. I was just like, I want to watch something new, and everyone's recommending it to me. It's like, I'll sit down and watch. I binged basically the entire thing in one go.
How many episodes?
It was like, I watched the dub, and so the first 11 were available, and I finally watched the 12th. So I watched the dub version. Fantastic dub, by the way. And it is about a character who lives in a world where giant kaiju rampage regularly.
Are all kaiju giant?
The world.
Are there small
kaiju? Giant, yes, absolutely. Humongous creatures.
No, but I'm saying, are there small kaiju?
There are small kaiju as well, yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure, because whenever they say kaiju in any sort of thing, it's always a giant thing. So I wasn't sure if there was small kaiju.
And there's directly inspirations of like Godzilla. Like there's like the number 2 kaiju looks very, very, very similar to Godzilla.
Okay.
And which is cool. It's a fun little reference. But it's about a character who is on the cleanup crew, where a kaiju will, like, they've got like a whole alarm system ready where they're prepared for it, and they live in a world that this is regular. So they got a task force that will destroy the kaiju.
He's not part of it.
He wants to be.
Okay, yeah.
He wants to be a part of it. But he's a part of the cleanup crew where they like have to go in after it's dead to clean up the body and get rid of it so that life can go back to normal in that region, which is kind of a cool fun little concept, right?
Yeah.
But because he wants to be a part of this task force, he kind of gave up on it. He's getting older now. He's in his 30s, he's like 33 or something, and 34. And he then one day becomes a kaiju himself. This is the first episode. I'm not really spoiling much, right?
Okay.
This is literally the first episode. And now he's in a world where he's potentially a kaiju, where everyone potentially, if they know about it, wants to kill him. So it's a shonen. It is 100% a shonen, but it's just a really well done show that has an interesting premise, an interesting world that they all live in. And I like the way that it was set up. And it just executes these really fun story beats and has like a decent fast-paced action. And it was just really fun. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
All right.
I can see why it was popular.
What's a shonen for the anime noobs?
So a shonen is basically like an action show. Naruto is a shonen. My Hero Academia. Pretty much nothing like too adult. Okay,
so they always have an action sequence moved in most episodes.
Very action focused. Yes.
Okay.
It's mainly about, cool fights and things that some of the most popular anime out there is shonen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
So Bleach, like I said, Naruto, some of the big One Piece is a shonen.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you recognize any of these shows?
Yeah, no, I know everything you mentioned, although I haven't watched all of them. But yeah.
No, neither have I, because there ain't no way I'm watching 1,000 episodes of One Piece. That ain't happening.
Yeah. But you did watch the Netflix version, right?
I did, and it was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
I liked it. Ironically, it was a good time.
Yeah, I did re-up my HBO subscription to watch one of those movies, Iron Claw, I think it was, and so
I think that's where I saw it.
House of Dragons soon, man. So we'll see.
Nice. I haven't seen the new episode.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully I'll be able to catch up. How many seasons is it now?
Just 2. This is the second season. Yep.
All right, man. Kaiju number 8. Okay, I'll maybe check it out. We'll see. It takes a lot to get me into an anime. Did you watch Miyazaki's anime yet? The new one?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah, people weren't thrilled with my review of it. I just want to know. I don't know anyone else who's seen it. Like personally, I don't know anybody else who's seen it. So I'm like, am I off the mark here? Because
might be.
I just don't understand why so many people were like, this movie's fantastic. I'm like,
but that's the thing. It's just your opinion. It's just subjective. It doesn't, like, no offense, Level Cap. Your opinion, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter that much more than anyone else's. It's just your opinion.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
The same way my opinion doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I know. I guess what I'm saying is usually when I look at like an aggregate review site or something like that, I can understand where the audience is coming from for most stuff. You know, sometimes I don't agree, but I get why something was reviewed one way. The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki's latest film, I don't understand how it scored so high. Like beautifully animated, but trying to follow it along.
It didn't resonate with you. Not everything's gonna hit.
Yeah. Well, I read an article after that, just trying to find other people that were like, don't get it. And somebody wrote an article that was like, The Boy and the Heron's a fantastic movie that was not made for any of you. I'm like, what? And apparently it's like made for his nephew or something like that. And has
wasn't made for you? It
has all these references in it that are like
gatekeepy as hell.
That are not necessarily going to be able to be interpreted by the average audience member because it's like personal or something. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I saw a billion different interpretations of what the movie meant, which is, I think, a good sign that nobody knows what's happening in the movie.
I haven't seen it. I can't speak on it. You could argue that's just what art is. When people look at a painting, they see different things and it means different things to them.
Sure. As long as, I mean, and then you could argue that good art is something that evokes a positive or an emotion that you want to experience again, or that felt impactful on you when you saw it. And confusion was the emotion that was.
I have no idea what's happening.
It's like, I don't know. There's birds and stuff.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, it happens to me sometimes where I'll read a book, I'll read reviews. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that sounds like a cool book. And like the reviews are, raving. Then I read it myself. I'm like, what the hell am I reading right now? This is not hitting on any cylinder for me right now. This is awful.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah, fair. I mean, there's a huge spectrum in terms of what people want to watch and read out there. So sometimes you just got to figure out what you want. But anyway, yeah. Well, you all right? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hearing stuff?
You good?
Okay. Yeah, you look like you're controlling a starship sometimes, and you're like, "What? Where's the button that activates the hyperdrive over there? I can't find the hyperdrive switch."
I was just moving my mouse, Level Cap, okay?
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. What you playing for stream later?
I have no idea. Might play some more Kingdom Come Deliverance. I might download and play. There's the new Madden game. Or not Madden, but NCAA game. I might check that out, but I'd have to do it on my PlayStation. Yeah, I think it came out today.
No, I mean, I just didn't know you played sport games.
I don't. It would literally be the first time I played a sports game in forever. I've never actually. I think the last time I played was NFL Blitz on my Nintendo 64.
So what's inspiring you about this one?
Because it's new and it could be a fun experience to see like what sports games have to offer after 25 years of never playing one. Just for the sake of seeing what it has to offer.
Okay.
Don't judge me, Level Cap. Don't look at me with those. Don't look at me like with those eyes, those beautiful eyes.
It's surprising to me. I was like, oh, Matt must have like secretly had a sports game pass, but no. Okay.
Nope.
Cool.
Because who knows? I never played racing games, and then I finally tried them. I was like, oh, these kind of slap.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Oh man, racing, Matt. Racing. I'll spare you. I'll spare you. I was looking at sim rigs, though, just out of curiosity, and that is a rabbit hole, let me tell you. Like, normally I feel tech rabbit holes were like, oh, perfecting this and getting the best gaming keyboard and blah, blah, blah. Like, that all seems fairly... Like, I'm used to that world. I see what people spend on crazy high-end keyboards and stuff, and all their little peripherals and HOTAS and HOSAS setups. Yeah, I've got a couple $500 joysticks. I'm no stranger to spending money on high-end input technology. Sim pits are on a level that I did not understand they could get to. Like,
yep,
they are getting more expensive than cars level. It's insanity, dude.
Jeez.
Now, not that you have to go that route. Like, obviously, there's entry-level sim pits that don't cost much, but some of these like pre-made ones that are coming with every kind of input and gravitational acceleration stuff built into their hydraulic systems, they're like coming in at like 30 grand or more. Like, absolute insanity. Like, at this point, just buy a race car, man.
Yeah, it's actually a car.
It's not actually a race car. It's significantly cheaper, and you don't die when you crash. So there are some benefits to it. But yeah, I just could not. I saw that and I was like, I know some people that have systems similar to this stuff. I just didn't know how much they cost. So now I'm like, are you out of your mind just to play a little racing game? But I mean, yeah, you get serious about racing, man. You need that $30,000 sim pit so you can feel the road.
Man, sitting down and like penning that out. It's like, okay, I really like this. I'd like to take it to the next level. What's the next level? 30 grand.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of steps between like, say, $1,000 and I mean,
I know,
even,
but at some point,
yeah.
you make the jump, right? To even if you put like $5,000, that's a lot of money, but that's, you know, there's at some point you make the jump to the extreme, because I feel like there's very little in between the high end to your average, even above average level for that kind of stuff.
There is actually a lot of in between. I would say you could go up in increments of like $2,000 to $5,000 and get a different level. And I would also imagine it's like any other piece of tech where you just get diminishing returns along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I want to know what a $30,000 sim rig feels like. I don't want to buy one, but it would be cool to be able to go somewhere.
Probably feels like you're in a car.
Yeah, I'd imagine they get the simulation pretty good. I was watching a review on one of these things, and the guy was talking about how he could feel when his rear tires were losing traction, so he knew when to let off the gas. And I was like, that's really specific and accurate, and you know, and it had like different things behind his chair that would help simulate that. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It'd be neat if you could actually get an advantage by really being able to be in tune with your car that way.
The only thing is that you don't feel the G-forces.
Right, but it will tilt you to simulate the because.
But you won't actually slam back in your chair.
Well,
which
it
would
will.
Be sick.
It can. They do that. So basically, they just tilt it, and because you're still staring at a screen, and as you're accelerating, the weight of leaning back
is enough to simulate it.
It provides a very similar sensation to those effects. Now, granted, you can't continuously apply the acceleration effect. So if you're going from 0 to like 200 miles an hour over the course of a few seconds, you're only going to feel that in a much more reduced way, right? For probably a shorter period of time. But at the same time, nobody wants to feel 7 Gs in a turn, you know?
What they need to do is, I went to a theme park, maybe it was like Disney World when I was a long time ago. They had a space launch, and they put you into these like capsule things that spin you, so you feel the G-forces, right?
Yeah,
so like you take off. Now they need that, but then apply it to. There you go.
Now, they do have those flight sim ones that'll go inverted. Have you seen those ones? Yeah.
No, I haven't. That's nuts.
Yeah, I've been in one of those before. Those are fun.
Because those spin you, and you actually feel the G-forces.
Yeah, well, the flight sim ones will turn you upside down.
I'm talking about the ride I went on in Disney World. Yeah,
I hear you. Yeah, I don't know how you would actually integrate that to a sim situation.
I have no idea how you do it either.
I don't think you can without it being some insane device.
It would cost so much money. There's just no way.
Yeah. Also, the reality is most people do not want realistic physics. They want very much tampered down versions of real life, because I don't know if you've seen the workout regimen for like race car drivers, like F1 drivers. They're like doing rubber band like neck exercises, because half of the race is them just hitting turns at like 5 to 7 Gs over
they're just trying to keep their head from flopping around.
Yeah, so they're like sweating off a gallon of water every race, just trying to keep their head up, and their arms from turning into noodles by the end of the race.
Yeah.
So, most sim people don't want to be sweating bullets every race. They want to relax and kind of enjoy.
They want to have fun.
Yeah, they want to have fun and be reminded that there's G-force acceleration, but they also don't want to be like thrown out of their seat,
right, when
the car crashes. But I have seen some very fun sim videos of people ramping up their experience so that when the car does like a roll, they're like, oh, like getting thrown around and stuff, and then they'll like invite a friend over to play, and like as soon as they roll the car, they're like freaking out and like getting tossed around.
That's cool.
It's entertaining. Yeah. Well, I think we could wrap things up there, but I do want to remind people that if you want to watch the podcast live and see us mess up, which we do a lot, I mean, we're pretty good at messing up, you can come by live, you can chat with us while we're doing the podcast, and once we're done, we have a little post-podcast chat and cool-down session, and all that fun stuff. And you can correct our information while we're doing the podcast, like Atif letting us know that the company that made Delta Force Hawk Ops is essentially owned by Tencent in the long run, which does very much complicate the copycat situation, because think about all those ad deals and money and brand integration stuff that like EA's got going on with Tencent in various shapes and forms. So like EA wouldn't want to open up a can of worms to fight them about one game if it's going to ruin 20 other deals with them. That whole thing gets pretty complicated, huh?
Yeah, and also I'm not a lawyer, so I don't even know if what they've even done, we don't even know if they've done anything wrong. It could just be completely just above board.
Well, I mean, in this regard, nothing's wrong until you get sued and lose the court case, right? So, I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. There isn't really clear legal terminology in this situation. It's all very
We ain't
vague.
lawyers. We don't know what's happening. I'm just a gamer.
Yep. So if you guys want to support us, check out the Patreon links in the description. Otherwise, you can always just, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, beat that YouTube algorithm. And Matt's going to leave you with some very important advice, life advice.
My life advice this week, I saw this online. I think it was a quote, something along the lines of what was it? Sometimes doing something wrong is better than doing nothing at all. That's my life advice.
Sometimes, but not always.
But sometimes not always.
Doing
sometimes
it wrong
not always.
Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely apply this to different situations and see how
that's why mainly just don't get stuck in a rut. Don't be afraid of failure, because sometimes that's the entire part of living a life. You're gonna fail, and even if you fail, it's better that you tried than not trying at all.
Right.
Yep.
I like it. It's like
I like it too.
It's like Batman when it's like, what do we do when we fall down, Bruce?
Right? We lift a beam off of us with push-ups.
That's it. Yep.
That was it.
Make sure you're super buff so you can you can remove debris from your body. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Take care.